Okay. All right. Welcome to another episode of the Communiversity Podcast, where we're trying to bring creative solutions to community engagement within higher education in Baltimore City. Today, I have some dope guests, and as always, we've had some great revelations already that I would like to keep going. If you all could introduce yourselves.
Ladies first.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you. So my name is Gabrielle, and I am a speaker and facilitator for the We.org organization.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay. My name is Paris Wilson. I am the program manager for We from Detroit Stand Up.
They got the
Detroit.
buttery voices over there.
You feel me? I'm like, damn, brother. I'm like,
You gotta slow down.
You gotta, yeah.
And take your time.
It's like when you enjoy the sound of your voice. You know what I'm saying? You gotta be like,
Okay.
hey.
And can you all, before we get to our last guest, can you all tell us a little bit about what We is?
Oh, sure. So We is a youth-led or youth-based organization where we try to give young people the tools and resources they need in order to make a positive impact in the spaces around them, or just make a change however they want to see change happen in the world.
Mobilizing youth to do like civic and social engagement.
Bam!
There you
Yes,
go.
look at your lexicon, bro. I'm trying to
Right, lexicon.
I need to come and facilitate for We is what this means. But we'll talk about that later. So also, can I have my other guest introduce himself?
How you doing today? My name is Jalen Sanders. I'm currently employed by the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office while I'm pursuing my JD. I also do work with the Young Democrats for the state of Maryland as the Deputy Chief of Staff. And I go throughout Baltimore City and I mentor the youth. I go to schools, I speak at different events and show them a different perspective on like how life could go if you just ask a question.
Hey,
Out
ask questions
here.
and questions answered. That's my philosophy.
See, shout out to that philosophy. Well, we have a good energy going on. I think we're going to roll right into our first question. Now, y'all tell me, can you give me a personal definition of community? Like, how does it look? How does it feel? How have you experienced it? Offer us your thoughts on, like, how community looks to you, feels to you, tastes to you, maybe.
I would think community is accepting me for who I am. You know, as a guy from Detroit.
Shout out to the D.
Shout out to the D.
It's so cold in the D.
Okay, we're not doing that. We got to set some ground rules, and that will not.
No, shout out to the D.
But going to Michigan State, going to a predominantly white institution, I had to find what my community was, and I wasn't accepted in a lot of spaces. I was in an honors program, so my black interactions were even smaller than Michigan or than like the regular population. But I just think, just accept me for who I am, and
Does
love.
that go back to your like childhood? Because community had to have started before Michigan
Oh yeah,
State.
most definitely. I mean, I'm an only child, so I try to find friends anywhere. You know what I mean? And so
Shout out to friends.
shout out to the only children. Shout out to the only children.
Friends, yeah.
Hey.
But I think I just learned how to be a chameleon. So I think along with like accepting me for who I am, also I'm able to adapt to many different spaces, which can be good and bad.
Yeah.
You know, but I guess we'll talk about it later. But
Yeah, we'll dive into that. I got
Yeah.
some questions.
so unpack that.
Community to me, in all honesty, I kind of agree with them. It's about being yourself, but community to me is being in an environment where you aren't forced to change who you are, change what you're doing. So I had the luxury of bouncing back and forth between predominantly white environments, predominantly black environments, so on and so forth. And it's just kind of like, I mean, I was doing a lot of stuff when I was younger that I didn't necessarily want to do, but it was the end thing to do. Like I'm in the 8th grade smoking Black and Milds. Like that's
Oh, your lungs is harsh.
yeah.
Right.
Like it's not.
Tar black.
But it's to be accepted by my friend group. I'm like, okay, I gotta do this. I gotta hit this
Yeah.
one time. I gotta sit around outside. I gotta chill. I gotta.
Where are you
force myself.
from?
I'm born and raised here in the city.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Baltimore native.
it's you do that. Then I go to like my high school friend group. We just watch anime, play video games. It was less hood shit going on.
Shout out to Hood Shit.
But
and
then-
anime.
But then you shift to college, and it's kind of like a weird meld of like jock, frat, like became very women centric and like women focused and
That's
get
where
good
your
grades
interests
and
lie.
stuff too. Yeah, and it's
Mm.
I mean,
All about
not where my
values.
interests lie, but it's just it's weird when you bounce from environment to environment to environment,
Mhm.
and you see the shift in focus, and then it's like, well, do I really want to do this stuff? Or when I'm in this environment, am I pressured to do this stuff? Like when you go to a kickback, do I really feel like drinking, or am I just holding a cup because everybody else wants to hold a cup?
So influences is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so I feel like community is based largely off of influence, and again, I'm agreeing with him, like it's acceptance as well.
And also values too. You know what I mean?
Values, that's
I'm
a
reading
big thing.
y'all reading this book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And
Shout out to that.
that book is, if you listen, listeners,
He clutched up on
if
that.
y'all haven't read that book, it's gonna change your life. Anyway, but no, seriously.
You gonna cut off mine? No, go
He's going
Go
in
ahead.
for
I'm shut up. I'm good.
To an audience. Right.
I'm good.
No, go ahead.
But no, for real, I think just like your values lie in within the community that you're in, and you give a fuck about whatever you give a fuck about is what you're gonna participate in. It's right, what your community is, you know. So
Yeah, I agree with that. Community for me is where I can find, receive, and give love. So that changes for me often. I have a lot of different communities. I was born and raised in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So my experiences were very white. Not all the time, right? I have a very black family, so
Really?
I have an extremely black family. So they weren't always predominantly white, but I also have like the LGBTQ plus community, and then I have my, I just have like my friends who like to go outside and hike community, you know? So it's like, it's all about where I can feel, give, and receive love. Like I want to be surrounded by it, and that energy, and whatever that looks like. Sometimes love looks like service. Sometimes love looks like gifts, right? If you've ever taken the test, like your love language, right?
Words of
Right.
affirmation.
For me, words of affirmation are really big for me.
That's
You know what I'm
words of
saying?
affirmation.
Right?
I'm a touch.
So like, touch.
so am I.
It's all about. I think you're more quality time than you think.
We'll talk about that later.
It's all about. It's all
Clearly work
about.
together, y'all.
It's where you get love. That's how I have learned to view community. I don't think that was always my thought process, but that's what I'm growing into now.
Beautiful, thank you. So that leads us into our second question. Community, we're talking about educational spaces. So what has community look like in educational spaces? How has it manifested itself? What did it feel like? And it doesn't have to be limited to your higher education experience, which I would like to shout out like wherever you went for college and what have you, but also like what did it look like in K through 12? Like what does that feel like?
Extremely segregated.
Tell me more.
So I went to Leaf Walk Elementary School, and I think it was like the SAT or like an ACT. It was some major test we had to take in elementary school. I can't quite remember.
Elementary school.
Yeah, I can't quite remember the name of it, but it will always be this one kid, and his name was Sean. Yo, he would blitz the entire test, like off gate, every single question right, and
Shout out to Sean.
Right.
right. Shout out to him. But at the time, it was extremely frustrating for those of us who weren't as academically inclined as him. And it was kind of like growing up in those environments. The school would shame you if you weren't straight A, straight plus student. Like, and then when you transition to middle school, it's kind of like, haha, it's funny if we fail. Like, we make jokes about who got the lowest score. I mean, that was my experience in Baltimore. I went to Chicopin, left Chicopin with the Cardinal Sheen, and I kind of got a little bit better.
Oh, with the singing babies, Cardinal Sheen.
Yeah, but it was segregated to me because it wasn't enough emphasis placed on making sure everybody eats, and it was just like we're gonna praise these individual students consistently, like parading them around in front of you. And as a kid, that makes you feel bad. It makes you feel terrible because you be like, am I dumb or something?
It's divisive to a community.
I'm going home, like I don't get math, but like I'm really good at writing, but like math is now more important than writing in the school, so it's just. It was segregated and it was destructive, but at the same time, I feel like it was necessary because it showed who can thrive and who couldn't. Like, who was just going to quit when the challenge was put in front of them, or who was going to, like, push forward, even though that's not necessarily how it should have been.
Yeah, it's a
Bit of
little
a
white
Darwinism type.
supremacy rooted, but I get what you're saying.
I would agree with that, though. Like, that's kind of how it looked like for me in the beginning, especially in elementary school. I was just talking to my therapist. Shout out to people who go to therapy.
Shout
Black
out to
people
mental
go
Black
to
mental health.
therapy.
Your health is
We
your mental health is
Do
important.
this.
Yeah, but I was talking to my
Normalizing
therapist,
it.
and she was just talking about like I don't know how I got on this tangent, but just some experiences that happened in elementary and how very segregated they were, and I didn't notice that until I got older. You know what I'm saying? I started working with different people, and I was like, wow, this stuff is fairly deep rooted, you know. But one way that my parents and my family really tried to counteract some of that stuff is that I was homeschooled for 2 years. So then, like, I went to this predominantly white school. I had these weird experiences, and my mom was like, you know, they're not giving you enough self-esteem. They're not making you feel good about who you are. And so then they pulled me out of school. Then my aunt taught me, and it was a whole nother experience. You know what I'm saying?
So your mama and your auntie.
Yeah. So for like 5th and 6th grade, it's changed for me. You know, like my community was my family because I was I was being taught by my aunt every day. You know, like I would wake up early. I didn't have to necessarily dress up. You know what I'm saying? My mom would just drop me off over my aunt's house.
See, that's so interesting that you say that, because it's like I felt segregated at a black, like these were all black schools. Like that's
education is a tool used to approximate us closer to whiteness.
Yeah.
Hey, just
that's
FYI,
deep.
it's a tool,
Deep.
and our acquisition in it, because it is liberating, but the way that we tend to use it against each other is.
Are you separating education from knowledge?
I am talking about formalized education.
Oh, like you have to go. Okay,
the
credentials.
credentialing.
Okay, there
so
we
like
go.
you came in this and said I am pursuing a JD, right? That was a credential. And in terms of like status beyond you being a black cisgender like heterosexual male, that qualifies you and places you in a closer proximity to whiteness.
Right.
Yeah, I mean
that makes sense.
Well, I'll
yeah,
say that.
my bad.
Yeah,
I try to answer all the questions, but
no, that's cool. It's a conversation.
Yeah, and my experience, like my community and my school experiences, they just continue to change as like I said, what my community is to me continues to change. But in the beginning, it was very much like. It was segregated. I wasn't good enough. I also just wasn't white enough. My elementary was full of white kids. Like I think there was maybe 2 black kids in my class in like 3rd grade or some crazy stuff like that. I didn't really see a lot of black faces. And so when my mom pulled me out, you know, all I was seeing was black faces and stuff. And it was different because these black faces cared for me. You know what I'm saying? Like it was my aunt. You know what I'm saying? So she would ask me, "What kind of things do you want to learn today?" Or I used to have really bad test anxiety, you know, where I would like cry and shake. And so in that moment, she was able to read my test out to me, and then we finish it. And then I still, you know what I'm saying, I was able to pass or learn whatever it is I was able to learn. And I couldn't get that at an elementary school. One, they don't have the time. So
schools here don't be trying to honor 504 plans. So, yeah.
You know, yeah. And so, like, I just... But people aren't going to always get it from, like, an aunt, a caring, loving person, someone who just truly has your best interest at heart. You know what I'm saying? Teachers care. They can only care so much sometimes, you know what I'm saying? My aunt was like, you going to get this. You going to get this. We're going to stay for however long we need to stay so that you can understand what's going on here, you know? So
shout out to the teaching aunties.
Yeah, yeah. So then in high school and stuff, it started to change, of course, but that was my experience growing up.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't think my experiences are different from y'all, I would say. Growing up in Detroit, it's a predominantly white, predominantly black.
Sean, you've been lying to us for years?
Predominantly black.
Whole mixtape was a lie.
Yeah, exactly. Predominantly black city. So first, I went to the Malcolm X Academy in Detroit, where black nationalism was bred into me. We spoke, the only language that was offered was Swahili.
That's right.
We referred to all the adults as Mama and Baba.
Oh, you was in a Mama and Baba school.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Kwanzaa was all, like, February, like, that, it was it. Like, Black History Month was Black History Year. We celebrated Kwanzaa. Like, it was serious.
Also, pause. Happy Juneteenth, everyone.
Oh, yeah, happy Juneteenth, y'all.
Happy
Black Independence Day.
Facts.
But then I transitioned and went to a different school, a gifted and talented school, where, like, your experiences, people were like, if you got below 3.0, you got clowned. You know what I mean? But I think for that, it wasn't like, for me, like, segregation just made me fought harder to, like, be a scholar. You know what I mean? So I think that community just made me a better student. You know what I mean? And then everything changed when I went to high school. I went to a black school, black high school, Cass Tech, shout out. For the first 2 years, my mom moved out the district. Then I went to this school in the suburbs, and my life changed. Like, that was my first time even, like, being in spaces with white people.
Oh.
Yeah. To the point where all the black kids, so they had like 3 different levels of like classes. So you have like your general, your accelerated, and your honors. And so Cass Tech is one of the premier schools in Detroit. And So moving from there, I went straight to the honors classrooms. But those classrooms were all white kids, and all of the black kids were in the general classrooms. So that's the lowest achievement. And so that just kind of, I was like, yo, what the hell is going on here? Like, we're all like, it's a 50% school, black, white, where all the black kids in the low achievement classes, you know what I mean? There were no services, there were anything. I remember one time, it was to the point where in this community, the whole month of February went past. It was February 28th. And I was like, damn, it's Black History Month.
Ain't nobody told me
Ain't
nothing,
nobody
bro.
say nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Nothing.
And coming from my experience, because you get so engulfed into the community, you kind of like just go with emotions. You know, and I think that for me, like, that was the first time my community got disrupted. Because I've been around this blackness all day. Like, even in the Gifted and Talented School was all black school. You know what I mean?
That's a different experience.
Yeah.
I've never experienced that in Talented and Gifted.
Yeah, so,
Never.
so yeah, my community it just shifted. But I think it also prepared me for Michigan State, which is a 48,000 student campus where
Yes.
black people are like 7%.
So you talk about Michigan State, where we went through like K through 12 experiences. How was your experience with your college communities? You over here laughing, so we should stop at you.
She went to school with 100 people.
You went to Berea to college? No, shout out to Berea. Cool.
No, Loki was like 1,000, right?
Yeah, it was like less than 1,000
Where
students.
did you go?
So I laugh because it was like, my life has been wrapped around very white people. I went to a small school in Fulton, Missouri called Westminster College. It was a private school.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I
it's
think
where
I just met somebody who works there.
it's where Winston Churchill did his Iron Curtain speech. So we have part of the Berlin Wall at the school. It's really cool. Yeah, and we have the like largest Winston Churchill museum and all this other stuff.
Shout out to Westminster. And
Right,
their
and it's
Winston
also
Churchill.
where I had an opportunity to study abroad. I think my college experience for me kind of just reflected how I grew up. So what I say is that I speak the language of white, you know, and I speak it very well. I'm
That's
well
the
versed in it.
ultimate
I'm
code
fluent in it.
switch.
She
I'm
is very
fluent.
good.
I'm fluent in it.
If you get in any conversation with white people, just mention home brewing your own beer.
Home brewing. That's right.
And kombucha.
Just look excited about it. Anything they have to
Yes.
talk about.
Oh,
Truly.
really?
What?
That's crazy.
You know, facial expressions are really important.
I wish y'all could see
No,
her
it's
facial expression.
that's how you
It's
get
important.
accepted.
But like, so for me, it just kind of shadowed what I had experienced in Oklahoma. But within that community, what was really nice is that there was a large international community. So I found a haven with people who I didn't even know I would have these connections with. You know, people from like Uganda and people from Cameroon and people from
Across the diaspora.
yeah, and how much alike we really are, you know, and I
Yeah.
spent a lot of my time with, I mean, so they were black people, but they were African people, so it was a different type of experience. So for me, it was like, my community there had to be deep-rooted in, like, my international interest, and so I had to find something outside of what was right in front of me and kind of, like, find these smaller pockets of community. Then I went to study abroad, and that was wild for me because I went to a school that was 0.2% black.
Nope, not on duty.
It's like, nah.
0.2% black. So I went. So
What does
My
that look
graduate
like?
study was done at a place where it was 4%. That ain't 0.2. though.
Yeah.
No,
But
I got
see,
nothing.
I got to find community there with Americans, right? Like being from America in general was like, whoa.
So like salient identities showed
Yeah.
up where they needed to
Then,
be.
but then when I would find someone who was like British, like from the Caribbean and British, you know what I'm saying? Then we would have different conversations and different experiences. So again, every time I went somewhere, I had to find pockets of places. And I'm an only child too, so I have to find. Well, I was raised as an only child. My sister's 14 years older than me, but I have to find those experiences where I can.
A community chameleon.
I'm a community chameleon. Yeah,
I like that.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
still that.
I mean,
Bars.
even like finding people who are just oppressed, like I am oppressed. So like I helped draft legislation for the Irish and Roma travelers, right? So I got to talk to a group of people who were oppressed in this country.
Yeah.
And just having the experiences that they were having, you know. So
Yes, legislative shorty. Yeah.
I feel you on that now. similar experience. It's like it's so weird.
Where did you go to school?
I went to UMBC, so
Shout out
University
to
of Maryland.
UMBC.
Messed up everybody's bracket, destroyed UVA, made a bunch of T-shirts about it. It's weird because my time there, it's like I can look at it while I was there, and I can look at what's going on now at the school. It was extremely, extremely, extremely unfavorable to African Americans.
Yeah, we had a graduating senior come on a couple of episodes. I think it was episode C, where he talked about an experience.
Yeah, and it's terrible. Like, you have one of the most multicultural, diverse schools in the world that would not do anything for black people. Like, especially with Greek life, they were extremely segregated with that. Like, the advisor stuff were gunned for the African American orgs and not understand the culture and the history and the tradition that goes into being a part of that, and why certain processes are necessary. It's not like a crank them out factory like the other sororities. And just give me like 1,000, couple thousand, and all right.
And live in this house.
Exactly.
I'm a little conflicted because you know I worked FSL, and some of the stuff we do is toxic to us.
And then it was that, and then it was our space and our amount of resources allocated to us at UMBC was so small. It further enforced the crabs in the bucket mentality. So then you had Black Student Union versus African Student Association. Africans tended to stay in their own lane. Black Americans tended to stay in their own lane. There was a clash. But see, me, I was blessed because all my closest friends are Nigerian. And it was like, we don't see, he's from, I feel simple, but when I first met them, I was like, I didn't even know you guys were African. Like, he was like, but my name is Prosper Chinikazi. I was like, your parents just could have gave you a lit name, bro. Like,
Shout out to lit names.
Prosper, yes, I like that.
Right.
So I didn't see that, and but that's the person that I am. But then it's like the higher up I went, like the more I graduated, the more I started paying attention. I was like, dang, yo, it's like so many confines and boundaries put around us, and we're boxed into certain events and like boxed into certain things. We would go to SGA meetings, try to request funding for certain events. They will fight us tooth and nail just to do something, but will waste thousands of dollars on free popcorn and paint at a fair. Like, it doesn't. It didn't make sense.
You're pulling
So
out my heartstrings because I'm a
PWI's
student
getting on
affairs
my nerves.
professional.
Yeah.
Like,
But I mean, I would be a fool to not admire how much they've grown and how Freeman Hrabowski has stepped up to the plate after
Shout out to Freeman.
after hearing the concerns from the students about like, we don't have enough spaces to show our cultural diversity. We have a whole nother separate festival for students at the school of like minority descent, so like Africans,
people of color.
Eritrean people of color, everyone. So it's beautiful, but at the same time, it's still other things like the lack of African American leadership in the classrooms, like the number of faculty members that aren't African American that are actually professors, the Africana Studies department, how different things can be brought up, and it's just.
And it goes deeper, I can only imagine.
Yeah,
like, whose research is actually supporting Black people or people of color.
And it's just so sad because now I wish I had the knowledge I acquired now to know back then so I could pay more attention or be more helpful, because it's like I'm rediscovering my blackness as of right now, especially with the fields that I want to go into. But I'll pass the mic and we'll probably get into that a little later.
So I think you've done a very nice segue, and thank you for taking my job.
Oh, my
But we've done a very nice segue into like, what does community feel like where you like live, work, play, like in these spaces that you are operating in your best adult lives, or maybe you're not best adult lives, but like, what does community look like in those spaces?
I would think my spaces are very Black, and I love it. In Detroit, in Michigan is a very segregated state. And if you don't live in Southeast Michigan, which is basically Detroit and Detroit Metro, the rest of the state is white. And so for us, there isn't a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of entertainment in Detroit City. So you go to the suburbs, which means you're still in a mixed crowd, and sometimes you're not welcomed, you know what I mean? Because sometimes our cousins just do some things, you know what I mean? And
I like how you used our cousins, because yes, we are all in this together.
we're still family, man. We're still family. But moving here to the East Coast, it'll be 5 years in August, and right, and I love how Black the East Coast is. You know what I mean? Like, there's Black businesses, there's Black spaces, there's Black events, there's this podcast, there's, HBCUs, And in Michigan, I didn't get that opportunity. You know what I mean? Outside Detroit, who knows what my blackness will be.
Mm.
Even at Michigan State, where I went, it was enough of us. Like the black population can fill a HBCU campus.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to still have those black experiences where we have Greek life, where we have black graduations. We have a Black Power rally every year.
Shout out to Midwest for universities keeping up those
Yeah,
traditions.
yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to them.
So I just brought that blackness with me to the East Coast, where I would rather support our black brothers and sisters and our businesses as a fellow business owner and contributing to the black dollar and to the black community. So I want my community to be black because that's who I am. And I think we're getting to a time now where we're okay with that. Like, you know, people will be outside in the public talking and be like, you know, those white people. Like, nah, they white. Like, just say it. You know what I mean?
We can call them out and call them in.
Mr. Whitman.
Yeah, no.
Mr. Whitman, you want to be incognito with Mr. Whitman.
Call them out, call them in.
Yeah, and I'm loving like how, especially us millennials, are embracing our blackness like it's the 80s. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're having this resurgency of blackness that's happening, and I'm loving it. And I'm loving, like, you know, support black businesses movement, support black dollars matter, Black Lives Matter, like all this other stuff. So yeah, my community's black, and I love it.
Bliggity, 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 black, y'all.
But what about where you work, Paris? How's your community now?
Thank you. Y'all running this.
I was trying to avoid that. Thank you, Gabby.
Well, because she mentioned work, play.
Yeah, work, play, love, live.
True. So this is a statement from Paris Wilson, the individual, not Paris Wilson of the We organization.
Yeah.
Just wanted to put that out there. But as Paris Wilson, the individual, it's tough. Our organization is an international organization. It's very white. And I think with the black staff, we have identified that there needs some cultural competency.
Tell them to holla at Comm University because we're developing social justice and cultural competency training around community engagement.
But, yeah, and so luckily for us, for Gabrielle and I, our office is the blackest office in the entire organization.
I think it's because it's in Baltimore.
Because it's in Baltimore. but here's the thing though, when you say like we're the blackest office, you think, oh, you might have like 5, 10. No, it's only 3 of us. You know what I mean?
Oh wow.
Exactly.
2/3 of our office is here today.
I just saw a job posting for there like a couple of months ago, so I'm assuming.
Yeah.
that did not go that way.
And personally, I don't really fraternize with my coworkers who are just because I like to keep things separate. You know what I mean?
That makes enough sense.
Yeah.
I don't want you to jump down a well that you can't get out of, but I think we're picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm cool. Cool. But but I think my coworkers, Canadian or white Americans, understand who I am, where I stand, and what I will not do. Because I've learned in my life experiences to set boundaries and expectations, and how you're not going to treat me.
Shout out to boundaries and expectations.
Yeah, people don't communicate. You know what I'm saying? People don't, and then once
that's
shit,
a professional lesson.
For real, but once shit hits the fan, it's too late. You know, my mom always tell me like people gonna treat you how you want how you let them. You know what I'm saying? So for me being the only child and me, someone who always wanted a community chameleon, I always like let shit slide. And I had to dead that shit because I was like, nah, because you're not gonna embarrass me, you're not gonna belittle me, especially the others. You know what I mean?
Because it's not just a you embarrassment, it's a us embarrassment after a certain point.
Right.
Anybody else want to lighten it up?
It's hard to kind of like lighten up the subject.
No, it's fine.
So like at the state's attorney's office, working with Mosby and her administration, it's very Afrocentric, it's very community based, it's very loving, and I've never been in a work environment like that before, where they genuinely care about. It's like it was foreign to me. Like I had to really sit back and think like, oh, Dad, they asked me like how my tests went, or like how am I doing in school? Like is everything okay with me? They're paying attention to my mannerisms and what's going on. I felt like that motherly like nurturing love in there, but it's kind of like an inner conflict because I know the higher up I want to go to like affect legislation and policy, and then be advocates for my people, I'm not going to be in environments like that. So it's kind of like getting taken from the love of your mother and put like back into the cold streets. And it's like, all right, well, here's what type of time you have to be on. And it's also like a sense of identity and stuff. Like right here.
Has that helped with? Because you said you're going back to explore like your Black identity.
Yeah.
Is that helping to like awaken that?
Right. It's helped a lot. Like even with like I'm just growing my hair, growing my beard. So I feel like I can be more of myself here. But
a little beard, y'all.
A little bit.
Ooh,
Dang, it connects, but it's
Wow.
that's wild.
You know,
As it's
It's
exposed.
not like full Sunni. It's just like
It's a beard.
I didn't pick
It's
it
a
up.
beard that you're getting. He got nice curls at
A
the top.
fledgling,
Though.
fledgling beard.
The curls is popping at the top. He still has a little.
A baby beard.
He has a
But
baby.
dang.
Wow.
But-
Continue, my bad. But you're growing out this
like
beard.
it's kind of like I'm doing stuff that feels akin to me, like what I feel like doing. But I know when I go to other work environments, like I recently got like called to like interview for this job for like an Annapolis legislative firm, and I had a conversation with them about like attire and dress and work and stuff. They was like, "Oh, professional," but you know what professional means.
Professional.
Everything
is oriented to whiteness.
Everything's clean cut, everything's low cut, and even like my frat brother, he just got hired on to Duke Hospital in North Carolina, and then he was even saying, all right, I'm about to have to shave everything off, I'm about to have to cut it low, keep it professional, and it's
professional.
you get what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
It's an inner conflict, because it's like, okay, so you're in a work environment where you feel accepted, but then where you want to go to, you might not feel as accepted, but it's like, what burden do you bear if you want to invoke that change?
We got to get in there to dismantle it.
And as far as like Black love goes, I had to do some reevaluation.
Well, let's get in closer.
I had to ask myself why I like light-skinned women.
Ooh, let's do this.
Like I never.
Community. Okay,
Let's
so
do
let's
this.
explore. We're exploring colorism in community.
I've
And
never-
this is where we're at on Juneteenth, 2018.
So I had to pay attention as to why I was more like attracted to the fair skin, the long curly hair and stuff like that. The certain exoticism factors. And I'm like, oh, where did I get that from? My mom. I was like, okay, my mom's is light skinned, but then I was like, nah, it can't be that. Like, that's too easy to just pass off. Like, oh, you know how they say you go for what you.
Oedipus.
Yeah, the Oedipus complex. But I was like, nah, that's not it. But then I really started like monitoring like my intake, like my media, like what I listen to on the radio, what I'm reading, or what I'm scrolling through. Like I'll take all the social media stuff off my phone from time to time, because it's a certain image that's constantly like flashed in your face. Like even with the I call them living your best life photos, where a group of women will stand directly in the sun and just burn up just to make their skin look lighter and make it pop. And I'm like, well, what are you doing this for if you're a nice chocolate thing? Like, what's going on with you?
Nice chocolate thing.
So, I mean, I had to learn to, not like relearn to appreciate the elegance of a darker skinned woman and how beautiful beauty can be, and like her hair and everything like that. It made me see like, all right, you're looking through a jaded spectrum, and you have to correct some of the stuff that's going on in your life to figure out why you're looking through that scope.
So community is, like Gabby said, ever changing, and then also influencing, it sounds like to me.
Right.
And could be life changing in terms of how you view the world, your lens.
I'm going to Wakanda.
Yes, right over left is what I was told. Don't do it wrong or you kicked out.
You ain't going.
Listen, you're gonna be left at the doorstep.
Hey.
Gabby, what does your community look like in your present life? Like, where does it look like where you love, live, work? Like, tell me about community now for you.
Community now for me is, it's pretty black. It's blacker than it's ever been before, and I'm grateful for that, because I feel like I can say and do things that I just felt restricted or just kind of held in before. So that's nice. Where I live and where I work, still very white. But as I mentioned before, I am fluent in the language of white. And what I've also learned is how to let people know how very black I am. So I try to let people, white allies, they tend to do this thing where they're like, we're for you, rah, rah, rah. And then they cross a boundary, right? And I have to be very clear about checking them, like, hey, right? I'm gonna check you, but it's not my job to check you, so start checking yourself.
Ooh.
You know, like I just want to be able to give that. You know, I'm gonna give you the tools, just like I give kids the tools to do something. I'm gonna give you the tools you need in order to check yourself.
Can you repeat that for them who didn't hear it in the back?
Because
Do
this
the
is what
correcting.
I've learned, and again, I'm talking as an individual and not
Yes.
as
No. Don't
representative
even
of
mention it.
organization.
Don't even mention it.
but
We're
the
talking
thing-
about experience.
The thing is that as Paris mentioned before, you have to teach people how to treat you, type of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're always asked to. I feel like Black people are always constantly being pulled in this position where we have to check people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they get out of hand. Now, I don't have time to always be angry, and I don't always have time to watch what you're doing because I gotta watch my own back. So I am going to give you the tools and resources. I'm gonna say, hey, right, you're wrong. I'm not gonna tell you exactly why you're wrong because you can look it up. Google is free, all right?
You can process it within yourself.
But you're wrong, and don't do me this way, right?
Mm.
And I can almost guarantee you're not gonna be able to do every other Black person this way either. So I would, if I were you, I'd be more cautious of it. You know, that's
You
how
giving words to the wise.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I've learned over the years, or even just being like, I just don't want to talk to you today. Why?
Because I don't.
Because I don't want to talk to you. I've been talking to people who look like you all day. You know, like I'll say something. I told my roommates, I was like, when I'm watching Blackish downstairs, I'm not watching it with you. I'm not trying to have this. I'm not trying to share this experience with you. You know what I'm saying? So, my community at work and at home and with friends and family, I try to mix it together as best as I can, but I'm very clear about my boundaries. Now, when you mentioned like
because my insides are screaming like yes.
Well,
Fat Man Scoop.
when you mentioned trying to rediscover why liking light skinned women, I just went through that same thing, liking light skinned women and then liking white men. I was like, what is that? Because I'm not.
You're bisexual?
Yes.
Oh.
I'm not really physically into a white man, right? I don't know what it's just not. It's not something that I'm like.
Doesn't click.
It's not like an automatic thing, right? But like, if other things are a part of my decision making,
Yeah.
then I tend to veer in a certain way. And I was like, why is that? What's going on? You know? And so I'm starting to rediscover that, and I'm rediscovering my Blackness as well. And a part of that is because when I was growing up, that was all that was really available to me. You know what I'm saying? So I was just going for what was there.
You ain't see Daquan, you saw Brian.
I saw lots of Bryans and Corey.
Little Matthews. We didn't see
Leave
any
that nigga
Mackays.
alone.
You're right, a lot of Phils. I met a lot of Phils, which was surprising. Yeah. So it was just one of those
We're
things
calling it what it is.
where I was like, why do I do that? Why am I that way? So I'm starting to rediscover that now. But
And is your community helping you with that? Because that's what I got from Jalen's. Like, his community, his work community is helping him discover that. Like, I assume your family is, and like the things around you, the people that you consume as family are helping you.
Yeah, it's keeping one foot on the ground and keeping you grounded and remembering who you are, why you do what you do, and what you represent and what you're about at all times. So it's kind of like, again, even within my family, the same way UMBC was a cultural melting pot, like my family is a cultural melting pot. All military based on one side. The other side, ironically, my father's side, like my father and my uncle used to pick cotton, like back down south. He's from Goldsboro, North Carolina.
Shout out to North Carolina.
And it's having those two like mesh. You have like kind of Baltimorean, like because I mean my mother's side of the family is bougie, but it's like black bougie, like the you know how in New York when they started all the new fashion trends and stuff like that before white people came in and stole it, they were like black
Very
bougie.
blank.
They were like black bougie, and then my father's side of them were like country. They were like clay dirt, you know, playing with frogs and stuff like that, chitlins. So it's that melding, and it constantly reminds me of like, okay, here's one side, here's the other side. Don't get too ahead of yourself. Or lean too far to one because you need to like coincide. And both was like my community keeps me grounded. Then my African friends inspired me to keep back in touch with my roots and like where I'm from, or like the beauty and the essence of the motherland. And just even coming to the house, me and my frat brother Marius went to a friend's house one day to pick up a textbook. Mom's just prepared like a feast for us just for sitting there to pick up a textbook. I'm like, I've never been treated like a king, like just for 10 minutes and I have all this food. Do you need water? Do you need this? Like a
They
certain level.
can't turn down the food.
It's a certain level of quality of hospitality and like just love and generosity that's put out there. And I'm like, dang, it just constantly it's something always around me that's reminding me like, all right, keep your head on straight. Like, all right, this is what you're doing. Remember what you're doing. Don't get caught up in the glitz and glam of different things or what's being promoted or like popularized in society.
Well,
Would you say?
I would say that my family, my family lives in Oklahoma still, so my mom, she's very much like, I would like for you to be with a black person. I don't care if it's a man or a woman.
Well, shout out to mom for being
black
loving in that
person.
way.
Yeah, well, and she has her own, like, I just want to live with you when you have kids. Like, that's her thing, right?
Oh,
like, just
she
make
want
sure
to
I
be
can,
grandma.
just make sure I can live with you when you have kids, and it's preferably a person of black but of color. You know, it's like one of her things. So she reminds me of that sometimes. I think also my friends, I guess, kind of seeing examples helps too. Like, Oklahoma, there's a lot of mixed couples. Or then, like, my mom's from Portland and Seattle. Again, not very black places, so a lot of mixed couples. So at first it was like, this is all I really see. This is what I'm kind of used to. But being in Baltimore, specifically moving here and creating a community here, it is kind of forced me to be like, okay, let's look at some of the things,
Let's unpack this.
Let's unpack some of this stuff because it's not what you're used to seeing. Why isn't it something that you're used to seeing? Why is it something that you're kind of uncomfortable with? How can we make you more comfortable with it? So I continue just to put myself in spaces where I'm like, okay, let me challenge these ideas that I've been socialized to believe are true. Now, what I will say is that We organization gave me a great opportunity to work with the Kenyan Boys Choir, and for
Tell
me,
me more.
they're a choir. They went around the schools, and we went to like the museum and stuff, and they just gave me, spending time with them really allowed me to, just be comfortable in my blackness and who I am. Like however I am. I think a lot of times I'm trying to perform, or I'm
Performative black is a thing.
yeah, and I'm also a speaker and facilitator, so that's what I have to do. It's my job, you know. So sometimes it's hard to turn it off. But they allowed me to just be me completely and in just every way, you know.
And they were kids too.
The Kenyan Boys,
Yeah.
No, they're adults.
They're adults. Oh, I was gonna say, 'cause kids will force you to be yourself regardless.
Hey, now when I go into these black schools, they are like, "Ma'am, who are you?"
Exactly.
Like, you need to
Straight
You
up.
about to Millie Rock when you're doing this speech?
Right, like,
Are you gonna
what's
perform
up?
for me?
Yeah,
Get me
listen.
enthralled in the conversation?
I want to play. Yeah, like
Yeah.
they're really about that. But they gave me that great opportunity to just be myself completely and then be comfortable in doing that. And then outside of that space, I was like, I'm just going to be this way forever. And I'm just going to see how it goes. And I wonder who's going to accept it and who's not going to accept it. And it is what it is, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So that was a really cool opportunity that we brought to me. I will say I'm incredibly thankful for that and for the opportunity to get to go to Nairobi, which is like,
Oh, I do need to work for we, is what you
Yeah.
just said.
if you want to.
Right.
But I think that's a good segue into where do these communities meet? Communiversity is really talking about how university needs to connect with community and how educational spaces need to connect with community to address some of the community needs, because we're all in this one universal community, whether it's under the umbrella of like we are a community as black people or we are a community as people living in the same space. But where do community and like education or university meet, or in your jobs, where has it met? And do you have any suggestions on better ways that it can meet, or shout outs to good ways they have met and commingled and colluded in like overall success?
Yeah, I think I would say two things. I'll say two things. My bad, y'all. That would be that the community and university needs to find empathy in between, along with suspending biases, or biases, however you want to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Now, are you referring to Morgan, like HBCUs, or
I am telling you,
EWIs?
there are 15 universities. Context. There are
Okay.
15 universities in Baltimore City,
Okay.
metro area. All of them have an explicit community engagement mission in their mission statements and values through 2020.
Right.
How those look are different, and they are all seeking Carnegie accreditation for community engagement.
Mm-hmm.
However, in the state, as of the last assessment, because we're in an assessment year now for 2020, only 3 universities in the state have this accreditation from Carnegie, and only 2 are in Baltimore.
Wow.
And let me repeat that there are 15.
Mm-hmm.
And this is metro area, so I'm counting Stevenson,
Mm-hmm.
I'm counting places that aren't quite Baltimore City like Goucher, but they're in this metro beltway.
Yeah.
So there's some context. Like I said, only 2 of them have it, and it's Loyola and BCCC. So
Wow.
you go where you want to go
Yeah.
with what you was about to say. And some of them have infrastructure. I work at UMBC in the Shriver Center, which is a community engagement service center.
So you be doing like Upper Bound and stuff?
I do choice program.
Hey.
Right.
Shout out.
I
But
applied to that program.
really, yo, we're gonna have to talk offline. But so you can take that anyway. Some universities have infrastructure, some of them don't. Some are measuring. Shout out to Morgan today, who, and I'm gonna be scrutinizing it. They put out that revenue report of how much revenue they generate for the state, and the only explicit community engagement thing that they talked about was that they had 20,000 hours of service. We don't know a couple of things because they didn't state it. What the service was done, what service was done, what informed the service, because were they doing the service with intention of greater help, but also not knowing what biases, what identities, social justice work that you need to be doing in order to do less harm. And not to re-traumatize or trauma or inflict trauma. There were some pieces that were left out of that narrative, but I'm sure they paid that assessment firm a good dollar to regurgitate that. Basically, but there were questions because I'm interested in that. So go where you want to go, Paris.
That's cool.
Do you, boo?
I appreciate it, but I just think people who are in a place of authority don't respect people in the community at times because they don't have the credentials. They don't have the things that they don't have the credentials that they believe will give them credit to believe them, to incorporate them into their ideals. For example, when I say suspending biases, let's say Baltimore City, let's say Morgan, which is a HBCU.
I'm an alumni.
Right, you know what I'm saying. But how often do they engage with people in the community around this block, around the hood of where we at?
Versus what they say and what they do.
What they do is I can even attest it because I grew up around here. And, even with the different organizations on Morgan campus, Morgan State does a lot, but it's kind of akin to what we were talking about earlier, like that popularization or doing certain things or using those certain avenues. Like if it ain't on the phone or if somebody ain't see it, it didn't happen.
Right, of course.
So it's just the documentation and making sure that you're like getting this stuff and telling people like, okay, here's what we're doing here. But I mean, it can be strenuous in itself as well because it's like, dang, I got to tell somebody every time I do something. I can't just do it for the love of the community or do it for the good of the community. So
But the university is supposed to be tracking those
right,
things.
but with the fact, they're not even one of the 15 schools, you know what I'm saying, to get this accreditation of community
and
engagement.
we're in the 3rd cycle. So
Right.
this has been going on for 15 years.
right.
This has
Just-
been going on for 15 years. And This is the 3rd cycle.
Yeah, this is the 4th cycle. So we're coming out of the 3rd cycle.
Okay.
Since 2005, and then we're going into 2020.
Wow.
So yeah, I got the facts if you want them.
Hey,
Right,
I
fact
might
check.
have to come in your classroom and taught.
Right.
Listen, if I get a classroom, you're welcome.
But I just think, and Gabby could probably attest to this, just like I think people just need to be compassionate, you know what I'm saying, and listen. And that's one
Yes.
thing in our friendship, and Gabby has done a really good job at correcting a lot of my behaviors of just listening. You know what I mean? Everything doesn't need an opinion. Everything doesn't need a statement. Just listen, you know? And
That's powerful.
yeah, and I appreciate our friendship.
Thank you.
That's all good. Where's affirmation? See, I'm listening. See that?
Hey.
See that?
Hey, look at growth.
But on a serious note, I think as leaders, as future leaders, wherever fields that we're going to be in, I think we have to listen to the people who we're trying to reach.
Yes.
I'm a master's student at UB studying public administration.
Shout out to UB.
Shout out to UB. And we're always talking about democratic participation and how important that is when you get to know the people and you suspend your biases and not come from the top down thinking, trying to help these people because you see something wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Say
what
it
I mean?
again.
You know what I'm saying? So I wish I had a domestic example. I just came from Tanzania a couple of weeks ago, and so
Yeah.
but it's just and you have some of these NGOs who come into our cousins and our aunties and uncles communities, looking at them as savages, looking at them as lesser than because of the way they look, the way the community is, right? Like for a funny example, one of the tribe members were telling me about how, because Tanzania or Africa's resources are stripped.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So water is a really big thing.
Yeah.
So this NGO came into this tribal community and built a well, but they didn't talk to anybody. They didn't talk to nobody, right?
The domestic equivalent is a garden.
Right. Right.
Rain gardens.
Yeah,
and,
just a garden, a community garden.
Community garden.
Domestic.
Green spaces.
Yes,
Exactly.
domestic
Right.
equivalent.
Right. And so what's funny was every time they would come back, the well like lever was broken, and it would fix like 4 or 5, 6 times. And so they asked, it was like, let's ask why they keep breaking. Like,
Should have asked the first time.
exactly. And so they asked the women, because the women, I love black women. I do.
All
Can I
black
start with
women,
the precursor?
I
he
do.
said all black women across the diaspora
No,
because
straight
he's
up.
starting in Tanzania.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
Straight up, like
everything comes from a black woman.
everything comes from a black woman. One, a black woman is God, right?
In
We are
all
the resource of life.
ideations, yes.
And so just the love, just the amount of perseverance, dedication, love that black women show, and that I saw. And not saying like American black women aren't that, but
I was taking the compliment.
Okay,
You
cool.
said black.
Completely.
I just said
Cool.
I
yes.
said yes.
you know what I'm saying.
God damn
But
it.
back on track.
Yes.
We're back on track.
You
They-
are Bay now. I don't know.
That's cool. They finally asked the women why, because the women take care of the house, they take care of the village, they take care of the water, take care of the homes, and they said because you built this well too close to the village, where our husbands, it was faster to get the water, so that means we have more work to do. And when we go to the river or to the creek to get water, that's the only time we have apart to socialize with other women. You know what I mean?
Not even understanding the importance of the culture that you are about to invade.
Cultural competency.
You need to
Right.
go in and have a conversation. People having a seat at the table.
No, for real though.
That's exactly what community university is advocating for. So I'm here with y'all.
I agree with everything you guys are saying because I mean, again, looking from the side of the law, it's such a jaded view politically up top with like you said, you're looking down and telling people what's wrong with them. I'm like, Brad, did you just ask him, did he want something to eat? Did he
Right.
say he wanted his whole school remodeled and
Right.
his uniform fees raised and stuff like that? Or did she say that she wants to be put in front of all these programs or forced to speak or forced to do X, Y, Z?
No.
Like, you have to inquire about what a community wants before you just go out there and give it to them. And you,
Well,
It's
I don't even gotta make no segues. Y'all did it.
it's a constant back and forth because you're taking a subjective view, which is your experiences, what you're used to, what you're accustomed to, and trying to apply it to an objective whole, and it doesn't work.
and it's also a view that you have been given. It's not a view that you have experienced.
That's
It is
very
not a
true.
view that
Very
you
true.
want to experience
Yes,
because you're
rock
you're
on
doing
it.
everything you can to not experience it. But you don't care about the people who are living in it. That's one of the biggest issues, right?
Like to this day, I'll tell my
Yes.
friends, I'll tell any of them, I have no problem with sleeping on the floor. I have no problem with, just give me a blanket, I'll curl up in a blanket and do that. It's some people that I know that will refuse. I need a bed. Like, this bed is not even comfortable. Boy,
They
like,
never been in college.
never.
Okay.
Right.
And one of the people I commemorate, which I'm learning to appreciate more because I used to always look up for mentors, like an African American man and stuff like that. And I'll say Marilyn Mosby has been a wonderful mentor to me because while I got my perseverance and my drive and like the fist of righteousness from like the black men in my life and the idols that I aspire to be like one day, she gave me a very down to earth view and the things that she does. So she does every Friday leading up through the entire month of June, she does community pop-ups. So last Friday we were out there just finger painting with kids in the community. Day before, she rented out the entire football field at Dunbar, giving out free food, music,
Yeah, I saw that.
moon bounces, video games. It's just remembering where you came from and what you're doing, because it's a lot of people.
And who you doing it for?
Exactly.
Who you doing it
We have an
And
uppity nigga
with.
complex. A lot of people that are blessed with the ability to go to college and get a college education and get higher degrees, and when your pay grade starts to rise, you become an uppity nigga. Oh, I don't eat ramen noodles anymore.
Well, then
I eat
also-
noodles and company.
I think
Right.
a lot of
It's
black
that
people
proxemics to whiteness that we're striving
and a lot of
towards.
black people who end up going and getting this raise, and like they are in a new class now, so they feel a little different. I think they're also afraid of like black tax, so they do everything they can to avoid. They're like, I don't want to have to bring up everyone in my family. I don't want to be responsible for everyone. And when it's like,
But
who taught
cultures-
you about black tax? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who told you that was something that was wrong? You know what I'm saying?
But other cultures do it.
they
It's
support each
collective.
other.
It's collective community.
Yeah.
You roll if one person has a shop, you save enough money for the second person to get a shop. Then you
Exactly.
save enough money for the
Exactly.
third person to get a shop. Now we all have a little economy.
Right. And
within
Jay-Z
our
said,
own
if everybody
community.
else around you is broke, you're broke.
Listen,
It's too many it's too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Everybody's not meant to be in the face or be in the limelight of a leadership position. No, but it's
But you can
also
always help.
right. You can help, but you should also glorify the help just as much you glorify that one person that's leading the masses. Because without them, who would it be? Like even trying to get voters to turn out for the election next Tuesday, like the primaries for our governor, state's attorney, senate. It's funny because at first when I found out, remember the thing where they were like the 96% black women in Alabama and like
oh
the
yeah,
94,
they
and it was a
rolled on through.
and it was a
Again,
constant back
black
and
people
forth
say
and like a button of heads. At first when I heard that, I was offended because I'm like, whoa, the black men's numbers are just as high. But then on a local level, when I'm reaching out to like, yo, can I get your help for this campaign on Tuesday? Can you be effective in the community? All my brothers left me hanging. I've been talking to nothing but black women in my phone, and I'm like, I'm now taking that offense that I had, putting it to the side and tossing away that bias, because I'm like, dang, yo, it really is true. Like, they soldier and they hold up a lot of our community,
No,
and we just kind of reap the benefit
The civil
of it. I be
rights,
like, dang,
the
yo.
civil
Yeah.
rights was happened because of black women.
Women.
You know what I'm
And
saying?
even though the civil rights leaders were oftentimes misogynistic, that's why.
We shouldn't talk about that right
like
now.
we could go.
Oh,
we're not
shoot.
gonna.
We about to get her
Honestly,
started.
One of my
This
biggest
is why
issues,
I'm back, because I feel it.
one of my biggest issues with the way things are perceived in this world is that men always seem to be at the forefront of it, but they never look at who's the backbone, who started this shit, who started this shit. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you look at every movement, there is a black woman. Pride is a trans black woman. Okay, there is a black woman behind almost every movement, because we as the most oppressed group in this world,
We are the
we
most oppressed
understand that there needs to be a level of empathy for everyone who is going through something. So yes, the
Yes.
misogynistic
Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew
men
you was
who
coming.
run
through.
these.
I'm not even.
I-
Don't, please don't.
I'm
But
not
I
arguing.
think that. But I
I'm
think
not on
that's
this
a
podcast.
that's
Yeah,
a
no.
good thing to highlight. I mean, it's a good thing to highlight because we're
Yeah.
talking about how community like voice is important in policy, how
Right,
it's important in service work, and how it's
Right.
important in engagement. Like these are important, and then who is engaging in community,
I mean,
and then
everything is-
who has been unfortunately structurally separated from community, because I don't think that it is all black men's fault in this
Right.
current ideation. I do think there have been so many things in particularly within colonized spaces that have been done to like just belittle and demean and dehumanize black men
So that's why
to
I wanted
where
to ask.
to where it's I understand the frustration, but I always go back to the roots for these fruits.
So then what about
Because
that?
we didn't get here.
What about the educational disparities though? Because it's kind of like how you have a high, and it kind of goes back to
It's
what
a
you were
root
saying.
to these fruits.
Because it's just interesting to hear you say that, because out here the generic, there's no more good black men around. Like I can't find a black man to match my speed. Coming from general, while it is some exceptions, but it is a large portion of the general black women that say that, and then you look at them, they have hundreds of accolades.
But it's
Degree
what are
and
they
successful.
valuing in good black men? Because, like I said, it goes back to that proximity towards whiteness, the credentialing, right? So I'm not messing with. Paris doesn't have a master's yet, but you about to have a JD. And you got your little beard popping.
Acknowledgement.
Now he has a beard.
Yeah, I know. I still said it was little.
Oh, okay.
But you got your
Yeah.
little beard popping, right? So your
Qualifying.
closeness to like what it is that is praised is closer than Paris, so that makes you more acceptable. I mean, makes you more palatable or makes you more attractive if we're thinking in the context of whiteness. Like, I am looking for a man who loves me, right? I date a plus size pear shaped man. And he is exactly pear-shaped. He's a pear-shaped man. But again,
Hips for days.
Listen, ass, hips, all of it for days. I pray if we have a daughter, my God,
Oh my
to
God.
keep her in sweats.
Yo.
But like honestly, it's about what we place value on, and I think that's that reorganizing of where we place value, right? So those women who are saying good man, you probably have to go back and ask like, where is that coming from, sis? Or what does good mean? Because degrees don't mean he's gonna treat you well.
Right.
Degrees don't
you can be a
mean
weak nigga with
he
mad
or
degrees.
she is like he or she. Because listen, abuse goes both ways.
Okay.
He, she, they, them, zimzer, whomever is gonna treat you well because they have degrees. That is a qualifier that somebody else gave us.
It's gold. It's nothing but gold. But it's just so why is the rhetoric so jaded when it comes to the actual platforms, and it's so one-sided? Like, oh, it's black women's fault. Oh, it's black men's fault.
Because
oh, it's-
black is bad. We've been put
Right.
into that binary. We don't consider what our other. I just came from Social Justice Training Institute, so I'm
Child,
hyper
still.
conscious of like, what do our biracial people feel?
Right.
What do our Latinx sisters and brothers feel? Like, what do our Asian sisters and brothers feel? Because we always talk about this in the binary.
Right. But they also don't have, the platforms like this are important. This is why platforms like this are important. We have these conversations because not everybody has a conversation, or they can't have a conversation with someone who really can give them or be the devil's advocate sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're just kind of going what they were given.
What we consume. That's why.
Yeah. That's why you gotta ask questions and question answers.
Yeah, ask clarifying questions.
Yeah,
And that's
always.
what I learned from SJTI the most this past week was like, ask a clarifying question. If somebody say something wild after left field out their neck, before you chop off their neck or take away their black card, because we love to do that as a people, ask a clarifying question. Because when I ask women, what does a good man look like? It's often not the things that I would personally qualify to being good.
Strong, ambitious, got his life together.
No, most of them would be like, he needs to make 50K. Like, you get what I'm saying? And
6'1".
listen, 6'1", like, from the talls to the smalls, Jackie
this
loves
black
them
man never
all.
cheat.
Like, you need to.
Gotta keep plugging that. Black men never cheat. It's just it's a cordial misunderstanding.
All right, because I don't want to drag this along too much longer, but I do want to offer you space to offer any suggestions that you would say, like Paris offered some very strong ones, like all of you. Any more suggestions that you would say on how to better unify community, particularly around educational spaces and surrounding community? And then give me some stuff that's coming up for you or anything that you want the people to know, where they can reach you.
We can plug.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we're putting on Blackish Juneteenth. But any final thoughts, and then where people can reach you, and then also I'll collect the information later, so it'll be in the description bar on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and now we getting on iTunes.
Oh, no.
So things are moving. Yeah.
Getting that Drake money.
Shout out to Black Excellence. Black Excellence.
Let me scratch my back on that one because I don't know about Drake money, but let's pray.
Like where suggestions. When you say suggestions, I think the only thing that really popped into mind for me, and it's because I work with kids, is to listen to kids when it comes to their education, because they are a big part of it. So when we're talking about community and trying to have everyone come together as one, don't forget about the little kids. You know what I'm saying? Don't forget to ask them about.
Gonna have kids on here in 2 weeks.
That's what's up.
Yeah, don't forget to ask them about how they think that this should look. You know what I'm saying? Because also, kids are our future and our present, right? And so we have to give them the space to be able to make some decisions for themselves. Because they're not going to always have us to make those decisions. And we're not going to always make the right decisions.
No.
So especially when it comes to what they want to do and what they need to do. Because we don't know. Sometimes we forget. We forget how it is to be a kid sometimes. So I think that would be my one suggestion.
I think on the educational piece, I think understanding our kids, our black or any kids in general, because the reason why a student may or may be acting out in class because you don't know what the root causes are. You feel me? And I come from a values-based perspective where I'm considering every person's value to, I guess, charge my interactions with them. You feel me? So that means you have to understand people. You have to listen. You have to be empathetic. And I think a lot of adults, we have this adultism. Being someone who was a teacher, who was a project director for an after-school program, who was a federal grants manager at a school. So I've been in various levels of education. And the adults, we look at children as if they don't know anything.
When they are really brilliant.
You know what I'm saying?
You give them the
especially our kids of color. You know what I mean? And some of these kids have been through worse stuff than some of these adults who are teaching them.
They've had to navigate complexities.
You know
so
what I
they
mean?
know complex problem solutions.
Absolutely. And at the age that they're at, you know what I'm saying? They're not even fully developed.
Right.
You know?
Right. And
Little big hands, little bodies, but they're brilliant.
But they're brilliant.
But we forget to capitalize on that that potential power that they have. You know, I just read Carter G. Woodson's The Education of the Negro. It's the precursor to
Shout out to Carter G. Woodson.
Man, he was ahead of his time.
Carter G. wouldn't be standing for this stuff.
No,
I know that.
Facts. But people, especially the Europeans, they've always said that black people have this unnatural intellectual power that the Americans need to capitalize on. But they knew that, and they decided not to because of obvious reasons.
Right.
You feel me?
Yeah.
But I'm all about, and I'll end with this, but I'm all about understanding our children, just taking an extra second to ask them why, or get to know them, or just figuring out who these kids are, you know what I'm saying? Have a conversation with them as a human being and as a person, not because I'm the adult and you're the kid, and I know more than you. When, in actuality, they can fact check us in 2.5 seconds with Google.
Everybody has access to
You feel me?
Google.
Okay.
And so, that's all I gotta say.
That's good. Jay, give me like any suggestions, and then I'm gonna let y'all plug what y'all want.
I've thought about this for a while, like, because I'm still like refining it myself. But just remember the 3 P's: pride, purpose, and your passion. If you're not working in the purpose that you're meant to do, like, okay, anybody can get an 80K, anybody can get let me speak correctly. Some people can get an 80K, but like anybody can get a good paying job if you work hard enough at it. But is that what you're really supposed to be doing? Are you taking yourself out of the lane that, I'm not sure if everybody's spiritual or not, but no disrespect to those who aren't. But are you taking yourself out of the lane your creator placed you in? Are you just doing something because it's a trend? Are you following something because it's what everybody feels is cool? Make sure you maintain your purpose. Check your pride. Because I see too many uppity niggas. I see too many people that feel like their time is too valuable to do community service. Like me and my homeboy went just to talk to some little girls at a school. They were doing it's called LIT program by Ms. Brevon Stewart. It was ladies in training, like teaching them the qualities of etiquette and leadership and stuff in that community. And it's just, he was sitting there, he was like, bro, this really just like took it full circle for me, and it reminded me why I'm doing this. Stop being so prideful that you think your time is so important. You're just as good as the homeless person outside. That homeless person is just as good as you.
And you might be looking at somebody who has multiple degrees, who's been homeless multiple times.
Precisely.
Because I am that person.
You will never know. You will never know their reality unless you put yourself in those shoes and at least further the conversation. And last but not least, your passion. I love the creatives. I love people who embrace the creativity, and I love people who embrace the imaginative and the diverse. But you have to remember, like, while you're pursuing your passion, everyone is going to have to do stuff that they don't want to do. Don't demonize one other person's method of doing it to push up your own or make yours. Like, because as
That's
humans,
not working together.
as humans, we have a natural, like, delineation and pedestal system to be, okay, well, she's messed up more than me because she's sleeping around, or, like, I got my degrees and I got a wife and what I'm doing at XYZ. Like, check your passion. Make sure you're doing it for the love of it, and you're not putting anyone else down while you're doing it. Check your pride, you're not better than anyone else. We're all equal. And then check your purpose. Make sure you're doing it for the good and the greater good, not just to get a paycheck and to fake stunt.
Yes.
I'm gonna add on that real quick. I'm gonna say, remember people's humanity and remember your own
Yes.
humanity. I think that's a very
Yes.
important thing when it comes to community. Is that like the homeless person and you guys are both humans.
Yes.
So don't forget to treat someone with that respect. We as humans, we have a right to certain things in life, so don't forget that.
That is just brushing over my social justice oriented heart. And I think that's a good place to end. So tell me what y'all got going on. Tell me what's coming up. Like I said, it's gonna be released like 2 weeks out. So tell me what's coming up like 2 weeks from now, or anything that you want us to know, and where we can contact you.
I don't think I have anything immediate. Paris might have something. But
I
I'm
love
just
friends.
regular.
Okay. Well, I'm a newly business owner.
Yay.
Shout out to New Standard, NEAU Standard. It's a consulting firm, nonprofit consulting firm. I did my research. I'm the only minority-owned nonprofit consulting firm in Baltimore City.
So if you're trying to work with Black businesses.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
corporate.
I feel like I should be on your team.
Yeah, so what we do is we create communities with we're creating new standards for communities with communities. It's our tagline. And
That is a good one.
thank you, appreciate it.
It's a great one. Right?
And so
Did
also,
you come up with that, Kathy?
I did not come up with
Oh,
it.
I thought you were about
I was
to
gonna say, did you contribute?
yeah. But as a millennial and as someone who believes in values first, I don't call my clients, I call them believers, right? Because I believe that you have to believe in me to produce a product. And also I tell every believer that this is a relationship, it's not transactional. So we focus on grant writing, grant evaluation, program evaluation, and program development. I just got incorporated in April. I'm trying to build my client base.
Okay, Communiversity is about to be new. What is it?
New standard.
New standards client in a minute.
Let me know. So y'all can reach me at my IG. It's Paris Francois, PHRIN.
You real French out here.
COIS.
Tu parlez-vous français?
No, I don't know any of that.
Oui,
Only thing that's French that I do is eat French fries. So I mean, no, bad joke. All right, but yeah, Paris Francois, and then Facebook Paris Wilson, New Standard at gmail.com. That's NEAU Standard at gmail.com.
NEAU at Gmail, standard at gmail.com. Shout out to New Standard. You want us to come back?
I mean, I don't have any events coming up.
Where can they reach you?
You can reach me at personal. You can reach me at GAB_S_C at iCloud.com if you would like to talk to me about anything. But don't come in my email with no BS.
Trying to
Zona
work.
Procha.
I just want to let you know now because sometimes I need to vent, and if you are that person, then
You'll catch that.
You're going to catch
that
that
heat. Catch that
fade.
heat. Catch
catch
that heat.
all of that.
Well,
Every piece of that.
every piece of that. I'll make sure I link you on Facebook and things where you want to be linked for social media. Give it to us. Bring us home. What you got going on?
So for the rest of the month of June, Marilyn Mosby will again be holding the pop-ups for the kids in the community. Anyone and all people are welcome. Anybody can come help. You're just giving back, man. It's just genuine, good, old-fashioned giving back within Baltimore communities. Well, because it's getting released 2 weeks out, I mean, unless do I got permission to release that video earlier, or do I need to wait?
You can release that now. It's just the time I need to
Okay.
edit to get it up, and it's one in the pan for this Friday.
Elections are next Tuesday, June 26th. Please, 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 people, if you want to see change in your community, you want to see leaders that are aligned with the things you want and the things that you need after they ask you, please go out and vote. These elections are important. I don't care what anyone tells you. I don't care what anyone says about, oh, my vote doesn't count or it doesn't matter. Your vote counts on every single level because the people that are put in power can't do certain things without you approving it or disapproving it.
Can I ask a question? Where can people find, I guess, what's on the books for the polls?
What do you mean by?
So like the policies and like the people who are running
Oh,
the different
so
positions.
I mean, again, it's all Google. They have the Maryland website that lists everybody that's running in their different positions. All you had to do is Google Maryland elections 2018, and the first website there would be what you can click on to see every single candidate: Democrat, Republican, Green, no party, and they'll list all of them, and you can go back on an individual basis, look up their names, look at their views and stances on different things, because everyone pretty much has like a quick blurb, like a 3 bullet points of what they want. But even with that, you need to do more research, because those 3 quick bullet points are education, children, community. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to kind of polarize those movements? So yeah, voting in that. Baltimore City is always in need of mentors during summer programs. Go out. It's not even that hard. You can literally call the program and ask them, hey, can I come holler at your students about something? They will say fine. You might do a background check if you come more than once to talk to the kids, but if not, they'll let her have it. But you can find this interview. You can find me on YouTube, Jay Sanders. I do a lot of different like interviews and stuff to keep my community abreast. You know, have an all down
Maryland
feel.
Mentor Connect is also another place if you're looking for a platform that will you can look for mentorship opportunities.
They just follow me too.
Yeah, they always send out. They have a lovely listserv where they send updates weekly. So if you're interested, Maryland Mentor Connect is another way to get connected.
Okay, most definitely. And then you can find me on IG at The Original Made Man.
Oh.
And yeah, that's it. Jay Sanders on YouTube, The Original Made Man, IG, and just
Okay.
think about someone other than yourself.
Yes.
Okay, I want to put my IG. I didn't even
Okay,
forget
go
that was
ahead.
a thing.
Get your IG
My
out
IG
there.
is Displays of Love. Displays of Love.
Displays of love.
What was your IG again?
The
Jay-
Original Made Man. All spelled properly.
All right.
All right. Well, this has been a dope ass conversation.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you all as guests. This has been another episode of the Communiversity Podcast. And happy Juneteenth, everyone.